Hi everyone, just a quick fun project that we did with the younger group was this cool little you know, night sky and stuff with stars and trees. So I thought that it would be really fun for you guys as well. I'm just using a small piece of paper, so cardstock paper, so that's why it's pink, but yours should be white. And yeah, so the colors that you're going to need, you're going to need vermilion hue, which is kind of like a bright green, so not hooker's green, and phthalo blue. If you don't have phthalo blue, you can use a regular blue, but phthalo blue would work better. White and black. So I already have them poured out on my palette, so those are the only colors you're going to need for the entire thing. And yeah, so we're going to start off with the background, which should be kind of simple. So you just want to use a big straight edge brush. So because my surface is pretty small, I'm using this one just because it's big for the surface. And again, you should wet it a little bit in your water and make sure it's not dripping wet. And then the first color, so when you're doing a night sky, you always start off with the darker color. So I'm going to be mixing the black and phthalo blue. So again, you want to make sure your product isn't too wet. Like mine is a little bit too wet, so I'm going to add more paint, and if it's too thick, then you add more water. And so I'm just adding some more blue until I get this color. So it kind of looks like black, but it is a dark blue. And if it's, again, remember, if it's too thick, then you can add more water, and if it's too thin, you can add more paint. So I'm just starting off at the top, and I'm just going to paint from left to right, and I'm going to go pretty far down because I'm going to overlap, and that's how you blend really well. And remember, you can go in like X motions or infinity motions because that's going to help make sure it's not streaky, and you don't want to put on too much product. Sorry about my bracelet, but you don't want to put too much product or else it's going to look very streaky and it's not going to dry very quickly, which isn't very good. And okay, so that's what I want. And then I'm going to move on to a regular phthalo blue, so your regular blue color, and you're going to start off at the next section, and I'm actually going to add more water because it's a little too dry, too thick, so it's hard to blend. And then I'm going to overlap over this dark blue area and go further down like that. And going pretty far down, and then I'm going to go back in with a darker blue and blend over this top section, and that's going to help you blend really well. So when you're making a sky that has multiple colors and you need to blend really well, you should start off with one color and go further down than you would want it to show, then go overlap with the next color, and then you can go back in with the old color to make it blend really seamlessly. So I'm just blending all the way down, and I still want to add some more dark blue over here because I want it to blend really well. And again, going in X motions will help you blend it super well. And then I'm going to go back in with the regular blue because I want it to be a little bit more blue. And then I'm going to go in with, I'm going to mix my vermilion hue and the phthalo blue to kind of create this really nice like aqua or like kind of like green blue color that's really pretty. And I'm gonna add some water to it because it's a little thick. Again, not too much water, but just enough. And then I'm gonna overlap with that, and again I'm overlapping the old section and going further down to the new section, and making sure you're covering everything. I'm going in X motions, and then I'm going to go back in with, well, actually I'm going to go back in with the sea green one more time. And then I'm going to go back in with the blue over the old section to make sure that everything blends really well. and it just looks like a really nice ombre gradient. So yeah, so if you go in diagonal motions like X's essentially, then it'll work really well for you. So I'm gonna just mix some more sea green because I need some more sea green, and I'm going to add some more. And it's okay, you can always go high up and keep on adding and re-adding your colors. You just want to make sure that it blends super well, and this might take you some time, and that's okay. Just make sure that it blends super well until you get it to look very seamless and blended. And it's okay if some areas are a little less opaque than others, because that's kind of how a sky looks like almost. Again, this is naturey, so it does look a little imperfect, which is all okay. And sometimes you want to make your brush dry and then blend, because that'll help you blend a little bit better. And then in the final area, I'm just going in with regular vermilion hue, so the regular green color. And yeah, so that was a little too thin. That's why it wasn't very opaque. So I'm going to go back in, making sure it's opaque and adding layers and making sure nothing is too thick or streaky. And I'm gonna go back in with the sea green to blend some more. And we're bringing it up. Oh my god, sorry guys. X motions. And we're gonna keep on doing that. And I'm just going to take some more of that sea green to blend well in this area. And always building up will help you blend a lot better, so you can always build up and it'll work really well. And the bottom part doesn't really matter as much because it's going to be covered, but still some parts will show. So you want to make sure that it'll show really well. So I'm just kind of blending. You can always go back to certain areas if you feel like it's not too blended. And just for this first step, make sure that your entire sky is super blended and it's exactly how you want it to look. Okay, we just need to blend up a little bit more. And yeah, and that's how I think I want it to look like. If you want more blue, you can add more blue. If you want more dark blue at the top, you can add more dark blue with the black. I actually want more blue, so I'm gonna add some more blue in the middle section. And yeah, so at the end, you can always get a dry brush, and it can be the same brush or it could be a separate brush, and just kind of go from top to bottom, just blending in like X and horizontal motions, and that'll help you blend a lot better as well. Okay, so that's how I think I want it to look. Okay, so now we're gonna move on to the next step, and for this step, you want to have a fan brush. Your canvas doesn't have to be completely dried, but it shouldn't be so wet. So mine is essentially dry because I'm on paper, but you want to use a fan brush. It looks like this. If you don't have a fan brush, you can use any like big bristly brush, because now we're going to create the stars. And for that, we have to do like that flicking thing. I don't know if you guys know, but like that flicking thing. So what you want to do is now grab your white. So we're going to grab our white into a new section, and you want to add a lot of water to it, like a lot of water, so that it's super watery, and try not to get other paints in it. Oh, I already made some splashes, and that's okay because that's how it should look. And you want to start off going off really high up from above your painting surface and do some flicks, little flicks, and it's going to create some big and tiny stars. And I'm kind of flicking like this, as you can see, and your hands will get dirty, but that's okay. My hands always get dirty whenever I paint, so that's okay. And so you're just gonna make sure you go all around evenly throughout your entire painting surface. And you may, if you don't have anything underneath your canvas, you might want to put some newspapers or something down so that your parents don't yell at you. But my area is already pretty dirty because this is where I paint all the time. So yeah, so I'm just adding some more, flicking like that. You can also flick like this, but I just found that it works a lot faster and better for me when I do it that way. But you'll find out after you start doing it which one you like better. And I'm gonna add some more flicks because I want it to be very starry, very beautiful. And it's okay if some are bigger than others. If you ever make any mistake and you get like a really big dot, then just take your paper towel and just lightly pat over, like lightly pat, and then you will get rid of it. And it's good because this is a very watery product, because it's very watery, so it'll come off very quickly. So I'm adding some more stars, and these should be, again, really, really tiny, and we'll make bigger stars later, but this just has to be an overall surface all over your entire canvas. And you might need to mix some more paint, add some more paint, and do this a couple of times until you get it exactly how you want it to be. And yeah, I think that's good enough. We will go back in later on, but now we have to, so now you want to let this dry, but for me this is essentially dry, so I'm going to move on to using any like thin straight brush you have, like that has like a long top to it, but it's like kind of thin. It doesn't have to be too thin. And you want to grab your black. Again, I wetted the brush and then I dipped into the paint, and then you want to use the black to create some lines for the trees. So you want to start off at the end at it's kind of in like a semicircle or like a U formation. So I'm starting at the end, making a tiny one, and then I'm going here and making a longer one, and I keep on going. And see, if you add some more water to the product, it's gonna flow a lot easily, your lines. So see how that flowed so much better than the other ones because I added more water, but not too much. And then you want to make sure that it's very like thin at the tip, so like you can add a little tip if you don't have a very thin one. And then I'll do one more here. Okay, so after you get your lines, that's the basis of what you're going to use for your trees. So for the trees, you want to use a fan brush. If you don't have a fan brush, you can use any kind of like straight edge brush that's like thin at the front, almost like this. You can use that as well, and you can just do it the same exact way that I do it, but a fan brush would be preferred. I have two fan brushes, so I'm using another one, but you can just clean and dry your other fan brush that you used earlier. And we're essentially gonna make like those tree parts. And so you're gonna dip into your black, make sure that it's really, really opaque. So you might not want to add too much water, but still add a little bit of water so that the product is easy to use. So you have that, and I'm just going to start off over here, and I'm gonna go from the bottom and create like I'm kind of going from side to side, creating really big ones. And as I'm going up, I'm going to make even smaller ones and kind of use the side of my brush and kind of make sure that it's bigger as you are going down and then smaller as you're going up. And again, it's okay if it's a little imperfect because this is kind of gonna look a little bit blurry at the end. So yeah, and then I can use the side of my brush to make it smaller, or you can just use a smaller brush, smaller straight edge brush at the top if you want. And yeah, and just keep on going, doing the same exact thing over all of those lines that you made. You don't want to make too much because then it'll look kind of crazy. But just make enough. And you also want it to kind of look liney almost. So it's okay if there's a little bit of spaces in between. That's actually what you want, because that's what trees look like, really. And I'm adding a little bit here and a little bit up here. And see how quick that was? It was very quick. And then I'm gonna kind of do some touch-ups and add some black lines to certain areas if I feel like it doesn't look too liney, if that makes sense. And then I'm just going to fill up the bottom part kind of like this. So it's okay if there are some spaces, but the bottom part should essentially be pretty black. And so yeah, so I'm just filling it up like that. And see how the bottom part is pretty much entirely black? That's what you want. And if you need to go back in with your thin brush because your tip got lost, then you can just recreate the tip, like just extend it kind of like that, like that, like that. And if you need to create like some thinner lines at the top, you can always just make some lines with any other thin small brush to make it look a little bit more structured and precise. So I'm gonna add some here, and I'm just, yeah, so this is for any little details or any specific things you want to fix, because what tends to happen with a fan brush is you don't tend to have a lot of control, but sometimes it's a good thing and other times it's a bad thing. So okay, and I'm just going in with some more black to make it really nice and opaque. And then I'm going to go in with some of that verdant and hue, that green color, and I'm just going to add that to that fan brush, see, like this. And you're not going to take out any of the color. And I'm just going to put this in certain areas. And this is actually too much paint. See, if you can really see that green, then that's not a good thing. You want it to be very light. This is just for some little like kind of highlights areas. And you want to keep on blending it until you just see like a very little amount. Like it doesn't even look like you put anything, but it still makes a big difference. And then if it looks like too much, then just go back in with your black to kind of cover it up, or just take it out in total if you don't like how it looks. And yeah, so that's how those trees are looking for me, and I think I like how that looks. Wait, actually, okay, I'm gonna use an even smaller brush to extend the tips a little bit because I want it to be pretty thin at the top. So you can use a really thin brush for that, and you have to be pretty in control, so make sure that your hand won't wobble or whatever, like things like that. And yeah, okay, so now I'm going to move on to the next step, which is just the 2 stars at the top and adding any other big stars. So you want to use a pretty thin brush. I'm using the same thin brush. I just cleaned it because I had black on it. And you're going to grab white, and this time you don't want it to be very watery, because remember before when we did the stars we made it really watery. You're not going to make it very watery. It's going to be the same like how you do use other paints, and you want to get that all over your brush. And if you have trouble creating this freehandedly, you can draw it on first. Just make sure your surface is dry, and you're going to kind of wherever you want make like some of those like little like bigger stars that you sometimes see. So where do I want to make? I'm just going to make it right here. So I'm going to make a straight line going down like that, not too big, but just long enough. And if it's difficult to use and it's not too perfect, then just add some more water. But if you add too much water, it's going to look really thick and messy. So, and then you can always turn your paper over horizontally and then make a horizontal line, I mean a vertical line at this point, but don't make it at the center, kind of make it more towards like the lower portion. And there should be a small line like that. And then you're going to move on to the next part, which is kind of curving the corners. See how these corners are all like square corners, like 90-degree corners? You want to make them more curved. So you're going to just go and kind of curve them like that, like curve them like this, like that, and like that. And then you can, yeah, so that's what I am doing. And if you want to do 3 of these, you can do 3 of these. If you want to do 4 of these, you can do 4 of these, but I just want to do 2. I feel like that's enough. And you can make them of all different sizes, so I'm gonna make one that's a bit smaller and more lower. So I'm gonna make another line, and then a line going to this way, and let me use more paint. So let me just do that, and then I'm gonna curve the corners again, and sorry about the noise in the back, and curve the 2 sides, and yeah, then you'll get something like this, which is really good. And then yeah, and then that's what you get. And if you want to make the ends a bit pointier, you can always extend it some more, like I am right now going to do. And then okay, so now that I am done with that, the very last thing I'm going to do is add any touch-ups. So for that, you're going to go back in with your white and the same thin brush that you were just using, and you can add a good amount of water to it. And then you can just, with the very tip of your brush that's very thin, you're going to just add any like dots kind of in what is the word? I can't think, but, and then if it looks too intense, then you can just pat over top with your finger to make it lighter, and then kind of just go everywhere you want to go, and pat some more, and I'm gonna, so you have some big ones and then you have some small ones, and right now we're making those big ones to make it more detailed and bright and starry. And ooh, that was a big one. See, you can always get rid of it if you need to. You can also use water if, you know, if the rest of the surface is dry and you just put that one dot, you can clean it by adding some water to your paper towel and then just lightly pat over it. But yeah, so this is it. And then the very last thing you do is your signature. But for signatures, it's really important to do cursive with your signatures. And you have to use a color that's kind of in this palette, so, but it should still stand out. So I'm gonna just use a really thin brush and white, but I'm gonna mix it with blue and green because this is in my color palette, and I'm gonna mix it with a little bit of black actually to make it a little bit more toned down, because you don't want that to be the first thing the viewer sees. Like you don't want it to draw your attention, but it should be visible because you want to get that credit. So you also want to make this product pretty watery but not too watery, and so that it's easy to use but it's not gonna like be very thick and thick lines and stuff. And then usually what people do is on the right hand corner, I think it looks like left hand for you guys, but on the right hand corner, on the bottom right hand corner, that's where you do your signature. And you should really practice this on the side, and do not use a marker. That makes it look very kind of sloppy and unprofessional. Like if you have a really beautiful painting but then you write in your, you know, your signature, that doesn't look very good. So for me, it took me some time, but I created my own like signature, which is just my 2 initials in cursive. So I do a P and then I do an A, but I make the A a star. That's just the thing how I've always done it. And then if you need to add more paint, you can add more paint. And then I always add 2 dots. But you can do your first and last name, but it should always be in cursive. That's gonna make it look a lot more professional. I actually made my signature look a little too big here, but you should make sure it's not too big. And then on the other side, you can do the date. You can do like 2020, you can do the full date or whatever, but I'm just gonna do 2020 because why not? And again, make sure you're using a brush, and it's okay if it looks a little sloppy because that's kind of how paintings like signatures looks like. If you wanna search up signatures, other signatures, you'll see that as well. And I think that we are done. Okay, so I hope you guys really enjoyed this. I'm really excited to see how your guys's paintings look like. And if you also want to make like a different background, like instead of doing like blues and greens, you can do purples and pinks and black, and then mix the black with the purple. That would look really cool as well. So I'm excited to see how you guys interpret this. And yeah, okay, so bye guys.